We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 110b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara said that when the person returns what was stolen, let's say he stole from a ger, from a convert, and the ger died, so he can't return to any yorshim. There are no yorshim. The halach is it has to be returned to the kohanim who are serving in that particular mishmar. And the Gemara said in the previous Amud that there has to be enough being returned that each kohen in the mishmar gets one pruta, at least the value of one pruta. And so the Gemara now asks, what if it's not enough, meaning the amount that was stolen is not enough to give one pruta to the mishmar of Yehoyariv? However, it is enough l'mishmeres Yedaya. It would be enough for the mishmar of Yedaya. Mahu, what would be the halacha in that situation? And the Gemara clarifies, hey chidami, what exactly is the case? If the case is that he gave what was stolen to the mishmar of Yedaya during their actual mishmar, so then there is enough. There is a pruta for each kohen. There's no question. Of course, that's going to be effective. And so the Gemara says, "Lo no tzrich." It's necessary to ask this question: do you have a liyadaya b'mishmarto de Yehoyariv? He gives it to Yedaya, meaning the mishmar of Yedaya, but it's actually during the time when Yehoyariv is serving in the Beis Hamikdash. What's the halach in that case? Mi aminan kevin delav mishmarto hu velo klum. Or do we say that since it's not really the mishmar of Yedaya right now, therefore it's nothing? Odilmar maybe kevin de lo chazi le meikara liyadaya koy. Maybe since it's not fit to go to Yehoyariv anyway, so therefore we know anyways it's going to Yedaya's mishmar, so it's fine. And the Gemara says take, the Gemara leaves that as a question. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Rava asked the following question, Kohanim mao sheyechleku gezel hager keneged gezel hager. The Kohanim in the Mishmar, when they're receiving this gezel hager from the person who stole from the ger, can they divide it up that they say, let's say some of the Kohanim will take the money, and then the next time there's a gezel hager, the other Kohanim will get it. They'll divide up corresponding so that everybody in the end, it will be equaled out. Are they allowed to do that? Mi amrin an asham kirya rachmana. Do we say that the Torah calls it like a carbon asham? So it has to follow the rules of a carbon asham. Ma asham, just like by a carbon asham. Ein cholken asham keneged asham. You can't divide up one asham for another. So you say these kohanim will get this asham, and then the other kohanim in the mishmar, the next time they'll get a different asham. You can't say that by a carbon. Af gezel, so too when it comes to gezel. Ein cholken gezel hager keneged gezel hager. The same thing is true when it comes to gezel. You can't divide up the gezel hager against some other gezel hager. Odilmar, maybe gezel hager mamona, who maybe gezel hager is considered money, and therefore it could be divided. And the Gemara says Hadar Pasha. Then he answered the question. Asham kirya rachmana. The pasuk does call it an asham, and therefore it can't be divided. Gezel hager keneged gezel hager is not allowed. And the Gemara continues, Rav Acha brei de Rava masni la behedya. Rav Acha, the son of Rava, taught it explicitly. Amar Rava says, Kohanim ein cholken gezel hager keneged gezel hager. The Kohanim are not allowed to divide gezel hager corresponding to other gezel hager. My time, and what's the reason? Asham kirya rachman. It's because the pasuk refers to it as an asham. And Rashi notes, in cholken menachos keneged menachos, v'karban keneged karban. You can't divide one mincha against another mincha, one karban against another karban. Milakol b'nei Aaron tiyesh ka'achiv nafkalam b'kiddushin. Learned that from a pasuk in Meseches kiddushin of menachos perakei menachos, and it's also learned out in Meseches menachos. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. By Rava asked the following question: Kohanim begezel hager yorshin have. When Kohanim receive this gezel hager payment, are they considered like yorshin, like heirs? Or mekavle matanos have? Or is it considered like they're receiving matan as a gift? The Gemara says, Lamai nafkamina, what difference does it make? Could go in shagaz al chametz. Let's say, for example, the person stole from the ger, he stole chametz, shavra alav pesach, and then Pesach passed, so now this chametz is actually worthless, and so therefore yamr yorshin have. If you say that they're yorshim, hainu hay de yorsimors, this is what they're inheriting. However, v'yamr mekavle matanas have it. But if you're going to say that it's that they're receiving a gift, so matano kamarachmana denesivlu. The Torah says he has to give a gift. V'halo kayoyvlu midi. And if he's giving this chametz, which is worthless, he's not giving the kohanim anything. The afra bialmu, because it's like mere dust, and therefore he'd actually have to pay them money. And the Gemara continues, Rav Zira boy hachi. Rav Zira asked the question in the following way. Afilu tim salomer, even if you're going to say mekavle matana havu, that it is considered like they're getting a gift, haloi boilan, that's not actually a question. Dahi matana amarachmana denesavlu, because it's this particular gift, meaning worthless chametz, that the Torah says to give. So that wouldn't be a question. We wouldn't say that if it's a gift, you have to give money instead of the chametz shavar leva pesach. Eloki kami boilan, but the question actually is as follows. When we're asking if they're yorshim, or if they're mekavle matana, the question is in the following scenario. Kegon shenaflu lo eser behemos begezel hager. Let's say you have 10 animals that are coming begezel hager. That's what this kohen received for the gezel hager, 10 animals. Normally you have to give meiser behemo when you have 10 animals. So mechayvi lafrushim minayu meiser olo. Do we say there is an obligation to separate meiser behemo or not? That actually would make a difference if they're yorshim or if they're lekuchos. or if they're makabli matana rather, Yorshim have it. Do we say that they're Yorshim, they're heirs? The Yomar Mar, because the master said, Kanu b'tfisas habayis chayavin, that if they acquire in this fashion, it's talking about Yorshim, then they are chayiv in terms of meiser behema. Odilmar maybe makabli matanas have, they're considered like they're receiving gifts. Utanan, we learned in the Mishnah halokeach, if somebody purchases v'anita lo b'matana, if he gets it as a gift, pater mi meiser behema. He's pater from meiser behema. So that's what the question is. So what are they considered? And Rashi explains, b'tfisas habayis means kilomar naflu lehen behemos b'yerusha. It means that they got animals b'yerusha as an inheritance. Achalo chelku, they didn't divide it yet. So again, in that scenario, there is meiser behema. However, halokeach lokach asar tolem shalon esasrum and ashuk. If he buys 10 sheep and there wasn't meiser behema yet, he buys that from the marketplace. So there we say pater of Meseches bechoros mefarish taima. The Gemara explains the reason in Meseches bechoros. In any case, that's the question: is there meiser behema when it comes to gezel ager? And the Gemara continues, Tashma, come and hear the following proof. This is from a Braisa from the Tosefta. Esrim v'arba matnos kahuna. There are 24 gifts that are given to the kahuna. Nitnu la'aron u'levanav. They were given to Aaron and his sons. V'kula nitnu b'chlal u'prat u'chlal u'vris melach. All of them were given through a klal u'prat u'klal and a covenant of salt. And kol ha'makayim and kilu makayim klal u'prat u'chlal u'vris melach. Anyone who fulfills them, it's like fulfilling klal u'prat u'klal and the bris melach. And kol over aleim, anyone who transgresses them, kilu over al klal u'prat u'chlal uvris melech. It's like transgressing on klal u'prat u'chlal and the bris melech. V'yelohein, and these are the 24 gifts of kahuna. Eser b'mikdash v'dalad b'Yerushalayim v'eser b'gvulim. There are 10 that the kohanim consume in the Beis HaMikdash, 4 that they consume in Yerushalayim, and 10 that are consumed even outside of Yerushalayim, and they are as follows. Eser b'mikdash, the 10 in the Beis HaMikdash are chatas behema v'chatas ha'of v'yasham vadai v'yasham tolui v'zivchei shal meitzibur v'log shemen shal mitzorah. It's the carbon chatas of an animal and of a bird, what we call the yasham vadai and the yasham tolui. You also have carbon shlam of tzibur. You have the log of oil of the mitzorah, umos or omer, whatever remains from the carbon omer, shtei halechem, and the shtei halechem that's brought on Shavuos, v'lechem aponim, and the lechem aponim, v'shirei menachos, and whatever remains from the menachos, from the carbon mincha. Those are the 10 in the mikdash. V'arba b'Yerushalayim, the 4 that are consumed in Yerushalayim is habechora, that refers to the firstborn animals, v'habikurim, that refers to the first fruits, v'hamuram min hatoda, whatever is taken from the carbon toda for the kohanim, v'el nazir, the ram of the nazir, v'oros kachim, and the hides of the kachim, the hides of the karbonos. And finally, v'asara begvulin, there are 10 that are consumed outside of Yerushalayim. Truma, one is truma, trumas meiser, v'chalav, reishes hagez, also trumas meiser and chala, and the first shearings, v'hamatanos, and the gifts, that refers to the zroa and the lechayayim and the keva, that's given from animals to the kohanim. Upidyon haben, and also redemption of the firstborn son. Upidyon peter chamor, and the redemption of the firstborn chamor, donkey. Ustei achuza, also the ancestral fields that go to kohanim. Ustei charamim, also stei charamim, they go, these fields are dedicated to the kohanim. V'gezel hager, and also gezel hager, that's our case. That refers to a situation where one steals from a convert, there's no one to return it to, you return it to the kohanim. And what's the proof from this Tosefta? V'kakori mios matana. What is it called? It's called a matana. These are called gifts. Shma mina mekavli matanos have shma mina. You see from here that they're considered mekavli matanos and not yarshim, and the Gemara says indeed, that is what you see from this Tosefta. And Rashi explains, B'chlal u'prat u'chlal, they're all through a klal u'prat u'chlal, l'chol kodshe b'nei Yisrael, l'chonesunim, l'moshcha klal. That part of the pasuk is a klal, it's a generalization. V'zeh yilocha mikodesh hakadoshim mino eish prat kol matan b'fnei atzma. When it says v'zeh yilocha, it specifies each matan on its own. And then when the pasuk says v'chol shumas kadoshim chazur klal, when it says v'chol shumas kadoshim, that's a klal. V'hadr ksib bris malach olamhu, then it talks about the covenant of the salt. B'sofa parsha, at the end of the parsha. And so we say, Kala mekayim on kilo kayim kola Torah kula. What the Braisa means to say is, anyone who fulfills the 24 matnas kahuna, it's like fulfilling the entire Torah, shenitna lidrosh b'chlal u'prat u'chlal, because the Torah is darshaned through klal u'prat u'chlal. U'ch'ilu kayim kola karbanos. It's also as if one has fulfilled all karbanos, shenitna v'hen bris melech, upon which there is a covenant of the salt. And then we say Eser b'mikdash, there are 10 in the mikdash, Nechol lifnim min haklayim, that means within the curtains of the Beis HaMikdash. Arba b'Yerushalayim, there are 4 in Yerushalayim, b'chol ha'ir, that means the whole city of Yerushalayim, that's where they're consumed. V'eser b'gvulim, and then there are 10 b'gvulim, that means Biore, Eretz Yisrael, in the cities of Eretz Yisrael. And Rashi continues explaining the various korbanos. Asham vade chamishahin. There are 5 ashams: gezelos, meilos, shivcha charufa, nazir, metzor, v'chad chashavlu. That's all counted like 1. Asham tali refers to Baal safek koresh shelo nodalo she'avar vadai sheyavi chatos. Asham tali refers to a situation of a safek koresh. He's not aware that he certainly transgressed, that he should bring a karban chatos. And Rashi continues, v'ziv cheshal meitzibur kivsei atzeres. That refers to the kivsei atzeres shenikru shlamim. Those are called shlamim. Kedichsiv, as it's written in Vayikra Perchav Gimel. Those are also considered holy of holies. Those are also eaten within the Beis HaMikdash. It means whatever remains of the lug, when they pour it, whatever remains, that's eaten by the Kohanim. And Moser Omer, the leftovers of the Omer, Minchas Omer, Nikmetzes, V'shirei Nachol, the Minchas Omer, you take the Kmitzi, you take the fistful, the rest is eaten. V'shirei Menachas, the leftovers from the Menachas, Kol Menachas HaNikmetzes, means any kind of Karban Mincha, where you take a Kometz. And HaBechora refers to Bechor Tam, Nechol, Bechol Ha'ir, that refers to Bechor without a blemish, that's eaten in the whole city, meaning to say the city of Yerushalayim. V'chein HaBikurim, Tzrichin Choma, similarly Bikurim, that's within the walls of Yerushalayim. V'ha'amurim Mitoda, whatever remains from the Karban Toda, means the Chaz, v'shok, v'arba chalos, me'arba minim shaba. It refers to the chaz and shok of the animal, and also the 4 chalas, the different kinds of the different types of breads. And Rashi continues, v'hamura me'el nazir, whatever is for the kohanim from the ram of the nazirs, roa b'shela, v'chalo rakik, that's for the kohanim. The chaz v'shok shel shlamim v'chlal todu, and also the chaz and the shok of a karban shlamim, that's included what we mentioned, the karban toda, the toda shlamim ikri, because the karban toda is also called the shlamim. V'hanach tarti toda ve'el nazir. Rashi notes that these two, meaning the toda and the ram of the nazir, mishum dedami lahadadi chashuv lebechada, they're similar to each other, so they're actually counted as one. Kedamar b'shchitas chulin v'perek zor, that's what we say in chulin. V'oros kachim oros ola v'chatos v'ashamos, it's talking about the hides. It's talking about the hides of the ola, the chatos, and the yasham. Aval kachim kalim, when it comes to the lesser holy of the karbanos, orosein labailim, those hides actually go to the owners of the karban, they don't go to the kohanim. Kedamar b'zvachim, like we say in Meseches zvachim. Umishamachika chashuv lehu b'hadei hanach d'Yerushalayim. Now the reason why these are counted among those that are consumed in Yerushalayim, lemuute de'ena nechshavim b'hadei hanach degvulim. It means to say that they're not considered among the ones that are throughout all the cities of Eretz Yisrael. Dehani oros lo misyavi lehu elab Yerushalayim, because the hides are only given to them in Yerushalayim. The lists of gifts that are in the Beis HaMikdash, we only count those things that if they leave the area of the kloim, if they leave the Beis HaMikdash, they would be pasal biyotze. Those are the only things in that list. And then the ancestral field, Sheikh Dishua Ba'alet's talking about where the owner is makdish his ancestral field, and then doesn't redeem it, umachra gizbar, and then the gizbar sells the field, when the lokeach, the purchaser, returns it at Yovel, it goes and it's divided among the Kohanim. Ustei charamim refers to the dedicated field. That's Yisrael shecherimu sadein. That's when a Yisrael dedicates their fields. Again, that goes to the Kohanim. V'gezel hager nami korile matnas gevulin. Gezel hager is also called gifts of the gevulin, meaning throughout all of Eretz Yisrael. Shem nasun lekohen hamishmar chutz liYerushalayim yotzef. You would give it to the Kohen who's serving in the Beis HaMikdash at that time, but you give it to him outside of Yerushalayim, that would be fine. Ve'el hashamo yala Yerushalayim lahakriv, and then in terms of the carbon aisle for the carbon asham, which is an aisle, which is a ram, that he'll just bring to Yerushalayim in order to bring it. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, "Nasan esakesav li'anshe mishmor v'chulu." If he gave the money to the Kohanim of the Mishmor and then he died before they had a chance to bring the carbon, the heirs are not able to get that money back. And the Gemara says, Amar Abaye says, Shmami no kesem mechaper mechse. You see that the giving of the money, that already is half of the atonement. The ilo mechaper, because if it did not produce any atonement, havamina. So then I might have thought, mahadar liyarshin, that it should go back to the yarshin. We should take it away from the Kohanim if they never brought the carbon. My time, what's the reason? Adaita dehachi lo yavle, because he never gave it with that understanding that there would be no kapara. He's giving it with the understanding that a carbon will be brought, there will be a kapara. If there's no kapara, they should get it back. From the fact that they don't get it back, you see that there must be some kapara just for the fact that the money was given. But the Gemara says, but according to that reasoning, chatas shemesu ba'alel, let's say you have a karma chatas that the owners die. Tepik l'chulin, that should no longer be a chatas, it should be like a regular animal. Because nobody separated with that understanding that there would be no kapara. The Gemara says to that, Amri, they say chatas shemesu ba'alel, hilchas agamiri la, when it comes to a chatas that the owner dies, that's already a halacha l'moshe misinai, delamisa azla, that needs to be left to die. But the Gemara says, but still according to that, asham shemesu ba'alel, let's say if a carbon asham asham, that the owners died. That also should be chulin. It shouldn't be considered a carbon anymore. Because he did not separate it with that understanding. And the Gemara gives the same answer. Asham nami hilchasa gemirila, when it comes to carbon asham as well. It's a halach l'moshe misinai kol shebechatas mesa ba'asham ro. Anytime you have something which, if what happened to it and it was a carbon chatas, it would be left to die. So the same thing happens to it and it's an asham, so it's left to graze until it develops a mum, and then again you sell it, and the money will be used for the kayetz hamizbeach, for the karbanos that are brought on the mizbeach in the summer, so that the mizbeach always has karbanos on it. But the Gemara continues, but according to that, Yavama shenafla lefnei muka shchin, let's say you have a Yavama, means to say, let's say you have a sister-in-law, her husband dies, so now she has to do Yibam with her brother-in-law, and he's a muka shchin, he has boils. So tepik below chalitza, automatically she shouldn't even have to do chalitza, and there should be no issue, she shouldn't have to do Yibam or chalitza. She certainly didn't give herself over to Kiddushin with that understanding. And to that the Gemara says, Hasam over there, Anon Sahadi, we are witnesses. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph.